Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John. Oh, you going sunglasses there?
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video as many likes as you can.
We also got an emergency podcast and several other podcasts, but an emergency podcast this weekend right now below in the description.
Forgive me for feeling like I just put 9 cups of espresso right into my veins, John. The Niners traded for the 3rd overall pick on Friday with the Miami Dolphins. They traded the 12th pick. They traded their first-round pick in 2022. They traded their first-round pick in 2023. That's 1, 2, 3 first-round picks, plus the third-round compensatory pick they got for Robert Saleh in the deal. What'd you think?
Initial reaction is absolutely loved it. I think sometimes in life you just got to put your huevos on the table and take a big swing. And I go back to after Josh Allen essentially curb stomped the 49ers, whose defense was playing really well. He absolutely destroyed them. And Kyle Shanahan gave a quarterback soliloquy that I think fans and people that have followed him very closely were kind of waiting to hear him verbalize. Like, we don't want to hear about the Matt Ryans and the Kirk Cousins. We want a guy with a sky-high upside. And he just spoke over and over about just what he witnessed, how much he liked Josh Allen, and just that type quarterback. And I think Mel Kiper, who been on our podcast, went on a rant the week before he came on with us. Like, are you guys watching what I'm watching with Justin Fields? Mel had got on the table for Justin Herbert, had got on the table for Josh Allen. And I think you could throw Trey Lance in. We don't know exactly who they're going to pick, but you got to have a guy with a high upside in 2021. You got no shot. Like, the Niners had a really good defense last year. And they had a defense that was playoff worthy. They won 6 games, Guy. It's a quarterback league, and that's what they took a swing for.
I think one thing that has crystallized this is watching the Chiefs. And I think everyone's always talking about trying to find your Mahomes. What makes Mahomes special is there aren't enough Mahomes for everybody. There might not be enough Mahomes for 2 bodies. But it is I think so often we talk about like elite NFL offensive minds, play callers, how do they elevate their quarterbacks? We don't talk as much about how do elite quarterbacks elevate elite offensive minds. It's like, well, no, if you could just find value in the quarterback position with your play caller, you can coach him up and you could use the money that you're not spending on an elite quarterback somewhere else. Like, yeah, what if you just had a $450 million quarterback, Pat Mahomes, and you paired him with Andy Reid? What could that become? And I think that's what to your point, like that's what we've been talking about with Kyle is, yes, you're a great offensive coach. Yes, you're great with quarterbacks. Yes, you can elevate the Kirk Cousins of the world. But what if you had somebody who could elevate you? What if you had somebody who, yeah, you make a bunch of great play calls, but what if you make a play call that doesn't work? What's the guy in the field going to do next? And
think about this, guy.
That's the combination of the best that you want.
In Andy Reid's 22 years in his career as a head coach in the NFL, what's the best thing that's ever happened to him?
He got Pat Mahomes.
By a mile. That's the best thing that ever happened to him. Bill Belichick has been a head coach in the league for, almost 30 years now. The best thing that ever happened to him was getting linked up with Brady. Now, it works both ways, like you said. Best thing that happened to Mahomes is ending up with Andy. But Andy benefited greatly from that relationship, just like Pete has benefited from Russell, McCarthy, and now LaFleur benefit from Rodgers. To me, the best part about this is the guy they pick is a 50-50 chance he's not going to be a guy. But eventually, you got to get up there in the batter's box and take a fucking swing for the fence. And I give the Niners credit for doing that because they saw last year the Jimmy Garoppolo experiment of always being injured / really kind of having his ceiling capped is just not good enough. It's simply not good enough. They lost the Super Bowl. Jimmy didn't play well in the second half. I mean, he was bad. He was really bad. And Mahomes was bad too, but he flipped a switch when it mattered, and Jimmy couldn't. And I think there are lasting ramifications from the end of that season.
Yeah.
And then it bled over to this year, which was, I don't know any way you can describe it beside, for the quarterback position for the Niners, an utter embarrassment / disaster.
Definitely a disaster. Yeah.
It was embarrassing play. I mean, I watched it. It was bad.
Yeah, but again, I can't be embarrassed by second and third string quarterbacks, right? Like that's just what you're going to get out of the backups and third stringers. So to me, it's just bad. Is it embarrassing? Well, it's what you get when you end up in that situation. And having Jimmy Garoppolo was part of the reason they were in that situation.
You could argue embarrassing from the fact is they bet on a guy thinking injuries weren't a factor, and he missed 70% or 10 games this year, and they had to rely on those guys again, and it cost them. In a season that they were definitely, I think they look like, looking at the Bears making the playoffs, they kicked the Rams and the Cardinals ass at the end of the season. They go, Jesus, a good quarterback. We get 9 wins with our eyes closed. Not even a good quarterback, just a functional.
But again, Jimmy had played 16 games the year before, so not like making your backup quarterback a priority. Whatever, that's a separate thing. Well, let's talk about the trade.
But I think that all led, all those situations led to this moment, which, I mean, is one of the biggest pre-draft trades. We'd have to do probably the biggest pre-draft trade in the history of the franchise, right? I mean, they're giving 3
it's got to be one of the
ones.
biggest. I mean, to trade for the 3rd pick, this far before the draft. Obviously, the Jets did it a few years ago when they got Sam Darnold.
They were only coming from 6, though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the draft's April 29th. We're a month before the draft. That's just part of this is, did they know? Again, we'll get to the guys, but the Jets are drafting too. Do they know what Robert Saleh and the Jets are thinking about doing today? Do they know? They just saw them at Justin Fields' pro day, right?
Wilson's.
Zach Wilson's pro day, excuse me.
The 49ers, or excuse me, I keep thinking Robert Saleh and LaFleur. The Jets have been on the clock since the first day of the offseason, right? The moment the season ended and they officially didn't have the number 1 overall pick, and then Urban Meyer got hired, but they could have hired anyone at Jacksonville. The Jets have been on the clock since the season ended because the Jags were, whoever got the first pick was taking Trevor Lawrence. So the 3rd pick, you basically know you're getting, if Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, whatever, you know you're getting one of those guys. Now, what makes this unique is they know these guys really well.
Yeah.
Like Saleh is his guy. Matt LaFleur works. Mike LaFleur is definitely Kyle's guy. And I think they know exactly who they're taking. Like, I think this trade was made. The difference is the Jets, they did not know. Because at the time, we didn't know who the number 1 overall pick was. People forget, it was still kind of shocking when Baker Mayfield went 1. To me, the only thing that's up in the air, and I don't know if it's up in the air for the Niners, given that they would know this, like, is Sam Darnold going to stay and they're going to get the pick of the litter?
I think that's part of it. Part of this is not just recon that they've done by, hey, Robert, come on, tell us. Hey, Robert, come on, tell us. Part of it is they've talked to the Jets about Sam Darnold. They know what the Jets, like they know how the Jets are thinking about quarterback, right? That's the other part of this. Okay, let's talk about the trade. Unless you want to say
one
more
lot.
thing on that.
I mean, it just, you give up 3 ones. Now, granted, 1 is a pick swap, but still, you're giving up pick 12 and 2 other first-round picks. That is a lot. The 3rd-round pick is irrelevant to me. Like, that's a throw-in. I don't even care. Now, I know you could probably get a good player at 105 or whatever the number is, but the 3 first-rounders is just a lot, because if you look at this year with the Niners, like, their first-rounder ended up at 12. So things can go wrong, injuries. All of a sudden that pick, instead of, I think the Niners are hoping, well, next year we'll be in the playoffs, it'll be in the mid-20s. It can turn into 14 fast.
Yeah.
And we saw the previous year, the Niners were at 13. They turned 13 into 14, and they got an extra pick, and they used that to get Ayuk. It's like, I just think they were tired of being cute. And I think I just get back to eventually, I'm not saying that the Rams motivated them, but you're chasing them. And they keep fucking taking Albert Bell, Barry Bonds, Mark McGuire level swings. Like, you just got to drop your nuts sometimes, and I think that's what the Niners did. Now, you got to like the guy, which they clearly like. I would imagine Kyle has done, is it fair to say, extensive breakdowns on these guys before they pull a trigger on a trade like this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe even organizational breakdowns.
Yeah.
Like Lynch, Peters, McDaniels, Kyle, the whole crew do their own individually and then kind of get back together and just – they probably had – what would you say, a couple weeks worth of hour-long meetings, hours upon hours over this stuff?
Yes.
A little easier.
Had a lot of time.
You really just got to isolate 3 guys.
Yeah, but before I want to get to the guys in a second. I want to talk about the trade value, though, for a second here, because after the Niners made this trade, the Dolphins then took the 12th pick, right, and sent one of the firsts and a 4th rounder to the Eagles to go from 12 to 6 and got a 5th back from the Eagles. So the Niners went from 12 to 3. The Dolphins went from 12 to 6. To go from 12 to 6, it cost the Dolphins 2 1s and a 4, and they got a 5 back. So however you want to, whatever. Okay, but it cost them 2 1s to go from 12 to 6. So it cost the Niners 3 ones to go from 12 to 3, which is a lot. But when you understand that it took 2 ones to go from 12 to 6, I get that it took more to go from 12 to 3 than it took to go from 12 to 6. Right?
Good breakdown, guy. I also think if you factor in a quarterback would be the equivalent of like oceanfront property. I think they're going 12 to 6 to either get a lineman or a wide receiver. You pay a lot, but the Niners paid a premium to get there, as they should. You want a quarterback, you want to get to 3, it's going to cost you extra.
You know what I like to say? It has to hurt. If you're going to make a big swing, it has to hurt.
It hurt.
The other team has to get something too.
It hurt. I mean, the pressure that this player, like Trevor Lawrence just has pressure because he has a ton of hype, right?
It's a great
but
point
he doesn't have a pressure of like, God, the Jags traded 7 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Even Zach Wilson. Let's say the Jets trade Sam Darnold. He ends up on the Washington football team, the Saints, wherever, the Bears. And they just take Zach Wilson. It's like, well, you drafted him 2 overall. I think the pressure on whoever the Niners take is in this. The Niners fan base is fucking massive. They are one of the most important brands to the league. The TV contracts just got. The NFL had to be pretty happy that this deal happened today. Like the Niners being relevant with a young star quarterback, hopefully. But the pressure on this quarterback is going to be known as like, God, it cost 3 first-round picks and a solid pick for you. Like that's not nothing, guy. I mean, there's pressure no matter what when you're a top 5 quarterback or you're a first-round quarterback, whatever. And it's not like this guy's replacing. I mean, the Jimmy's status is pretty low, but man, those 3 first-rounders, that's just going to be something that Mahomes, if you look back, it was 2 first-rounders, right? Watson was 2 first-rounders to get from the 20s to the 10 and 12. 3 first-rounders, I'm for it. I think sometimes draft picks can be a little overrated. I mean, for every Bosa, there's a McGlinchey. It's like you got to do what you got to do to get your quarterback. But there's excitement now, but there's just tangible pressure. This guy's going to be nitpicked on just stupid levels, right?
But so will Kyle. This is also elevating the pressure on himself. He is not just the GM. He is the coach. He did not just move up to get the number 1 pass rusher and then say, all right, DeMeco Ryans, use him right. This is what he's paid the money for, is to coach, to find this position and then coach this position. So this is, I don't want to say this is the whole thing here for him because he's done a lot of things well. And, there's so much projecting going on. But this is a massive part of where the direction of this franchise. Which way is it about to go? A, did he make the right bet in there's more than one elite quarterback? Then does he pick the one that's available to him? Because there's going to be quarterbacks drafted after him. Yep. And then 3, does he develop this player properly?
Here's the other thing. Schefter, I laughed, and you brought it up right before we pressed record about like there's the ramifications or the ripple effects in the league forever. He is kind of right. Like the Miami Dolphins are betting Tua's our guy.
Yeah.
And clearly they're going to 6. My guess would be like they end up with Jamar Chase or something there, get Tua a guy. But if this Fields or Trey Lance with Kyle becomes a star and Tua doesn't, that it'll be connected. Like these teams are interconnected now forever because Miami, despite just drafting a guy number 5 overall and then having a 10-win season, was gifted this Texans pick. They ended up being a train wreck and they ended up with a 3rd pick. So they're all kind of interconnected. Like you say, Kyle taking the big swing. It's going to be compared to like the Stafford trade with multiple ones. It's all kind of because they play each other. Now the Dolphins are involved. There's just a lot of tentacles of connections. I read today that the Eagles said they would have traded up to 3 if they knew Zach Wilson was going to be there, but then they got cold feet and they jumped back. So I don't even know if that's true. It just feels like they want in on the action. And this is just I don't remember these trades. Maybe it's just the last 3 or 4 years. I love the I was at the gym when this happened. I think a lot of these GMs now and coaches make so much money. It's a little bit like, in our backyard, Silicon Valley, these guys just get stupid money and you can just do crazy things, right? You're not worried. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, they're just not worried. They don't think about like losing their job. Like, how am I going to feed my family? Like they're just consumed with winning. And I think pro sports a couple decades ago, because it didn't pay like if you lost your job, you might never become a head coach again. You were just, right. I don't think these guys, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and even fucking Brian Flores, like I've already won rings with Belichick. I'm making $8 million now. Let's just fucking do it. The money's so stupid that we get awesomeness as content creators, as fans of the league, just as a pure fan of football. reading that was like, this is sweet.
Yeah.
Like this is, it was just a cool moment for the NFL.
It massive. I don't know nothing more.
Do you think this? But do you agree? Like, I don't think this happens 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was just the thing I would add. The thing I would add to it too is it feels like quarterbacks, like you're going to know faster with your guys that you bring into the league now. There's not like you're drafting players. We'll see. We'll talk about this to play right away, to be Justin Herbert right away, to impact your program right away, right? And so there is like this urgency to it where you're not waiting, you're not doing these big moves, and then in 3 years we'll see if it works out. Like. Now we're going to find out week 3 how it looks.
Well, let's get to that because I got a thought on that one.
Okay.